Welcome back to the Private Lenders Podcast. This episode is actually a recording of my business partner, Chris Haddon, getting interviewed by Bryce Matheson, the founder of lendersoftware.com. I was listening in from the other side of the office. It's a great episode. They talk about why we never broker deals, 6-point deals versus 1-point deals, and a case study of why we only stay private. Check it out right now.
Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your host from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Lender Podcast. We've got Mr. Chris Haddon, and I was telling him, before we started that he really doesn't need much of an introduction because Chris is kind of an OG in the space. And so if you don't know who he is, then you've definitely been living under a rock. So I'll let Chris introduce himself, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
I appreciate that intro, Bryce, and thanks for having me on. It's my first time on the Lender Podcast.
I know it's about time we had you on. I feel bad we had Jason on. It's probably been a year now or so, but it's better late than never, I guess.
For sure. Yeah. So Chris Haddon with Hard Money Bankers and Hard Money Mastermind. We've been in the private lending space for coming up on 20 years. The 20-year anniversary will be a year from December. It's about 18 months from now. And then more recently, in the past 6 or so years, created the Mastermind, because in our niche of hard money lending, there just wasn't one. And we had been in a really, really beneficial mastermind, not in this space, but in business and marketing, general like business growth type stuff. And we knew the value of a mastermind. So one didn't exist. So we created the one we wanted to join. That's
amazing. And as a member of the mastermind, I can speak to like how incredible they are, and like I'll do recaps, on like every time we go to one, but truthfully, they are like what you guys have put together is incredible. There's not I mean, maybe I haven't been to that many masterminds, but there's really not a lot that are like that. I like the intimate nature of them. I like that it's 2 days of like drinking from a fire hydrant and then you leave. It's I don't know. It's amazing. Tell me, like, what was it like before that? I mean, it's kind of the wild, wild west, and you guys are just like floundering until you figure it out. Like there wasn't really anybody who was doing this, right?
So before the mastermind, like in the early days,
or like even like 20 years ago when you started, like there was no YouTube, there was no like where did you learn?
Well, there's YouTube. We're not that old.
Well, okay, there was YouTube, but not YouTube like it is now. It's like everything is on YouTube, but like,
I'm just kidding.
So
yeah, you're right in terms of instruction and info, and there wasn't any roadmap. There's nothing out there, as opposed to like real estate investing, for example. Like back in the day, earlier in our career, like you bought courses, you wanted to learn wholesaling, you wanted to learn, whatever it might be in the niche of real estate investing. There was a course or a group or maybe an upcoming conference or seminar that you could access. But for lending, there was none. There's nothing. Like we would go to, back then it was the Pitbull conference. Now it's the National Private Lender Association, bought by.
Yep.
Yeah. Back then it was Pitbull, run by Leonard Rosen. And it was more of like a one-day trade show, meeting vendors and like kind of chatting with other lenders, but there was nothing technical going on. Like, how do I underwrite this deal? What insurance requirements are there? Let's go through some best practices for raising capital. There wasn't any of that. It was just kind of like a vendor show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the early days, it was really just trial and error, using our best judgment. We knew real estate, we knew lending. So the fundamentals we were comfortable with. But in terms of, I don't know, tools, software, certain, ways to market for this kind of business, like how to approach raising capital, there's really nothing. There's really, really nothing. And that's what we say. Like we say it jokingly at the mastermind meetings, but you're shortcutting 5 to 10 years just by spending 2 days with these like 30 or so lenders. Because instead of just figuring it out over a real period of years, this guy over here can just tell you. He can just give you the answer.
For sure.
Right.
Well, and like, So I've been to those conferences, right? Like I've been to NPLA, I've been to AAPL, and like honestly, they're kind of like they're horseshit. Like I just for what you and I do, for like if you're a correspondent lender or whatever, like cool, you can meet all the vendors, all the resellers, all the people that you sell it off to on the back end. That's fine. But I went to those expecting to have the level of instruction and collaboration and things. And I think it was probably just because I was like a little bit used to the mastermind events that you guys had put on. And then I went to this and I was like, I maybe went to like half a class for 30 minutes, got nothing out of it. And then I was like, I walked around the vendor hall for a little bit and like, cool, this was a good thing that I spent $1,200 on for no reason. Like that's what they're like.
Running lender software, like you're obviously in the room with all the right people and potential.
Sure. And that's different. Right. But
no, it's not really geared for education. It's, if you're in that institutional lending space, they probably are putting together the right show, and they're connecting you with people who you're going to sell your loans to or give you line of credit or nationwide vendors for whatever. And that's what those people need. Right. It just doesn't apply so much to what we do as lenders who control your own capital.
Not at all. Yeah. And like that's my own fault for like probably going into it thinking that. But that's why they've been so influential. And I can speak to that firsthand because how my lending operation personally looks now compared to how it did the first mastermind event that I went to. And I see it all the time. And I know you do too, but like people mold and shift and change to the model, which is the correct model, which is what you and Jason teach and like profess every single day, because it is, you've done it through trial and error. This is how it should be done. And I don't know. Now I guess I'm converted. I'm a believer. Like I did all the bad, stupid, dumbass stuff that I shouldn't have done in the beginning. And unfortunately now I'm paying the price for it. Like I've got my first round of foreclosures because I didn't underwrite loans properly, and like we'll definitely lose some money on it, so like I'm glad that we went to those because like that's literally exactly what you guys teach after 20 years of experience. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I heard a good line on a podcast I was listening to this morning on the way to the office, and that a lot of people they can't just be told, they have to touch the hot stove themselves. And so after you touch a hot stove and go through that experience of getting burned, that's when you really learn. And we try not to like cram our underwriting model down people's throats. Like you do it where you want, how you want. And, different states with foreclosure laws does change like what you can do and get away with safely without losing money. And then, but some people just have to go through it. Most people just have to go through it. We were chatting about a group that was at the June meeting. And, they're doing some aggressive stuff. They're doing some high leverage, and they haven't taken a hit yet. And we're not going to like preach to them. It's like, you just got to go through it, scrape out of a deal, have a little scare, maybe even take a hit, hopefully not a big one. And then you adjust, and then you learn. And then you'll be like, oh, okay, I guess I can't go that high on leverage, which is usually, that is a common thing to fix at the beginning, like we've talked about before, the high leverage thing. And then also the accruing interest and tacking all your fees onto the back. Those are like the first things that people change once they come into the mastermind.
Yeah. What's funny is being on this side of the lender software is we definitely don't do consulting. We don't do coaching, not even like remotely to the level that you guys do. But like when we're doing demos or things like that, and people are like, well, this is kind of how we do things, I'm just like, oh baby, like I would probably not recommend doing that. Or they just do like the weirdest stuff. And like people will take all of their fees and they'll wrap it in, and they're like, well, that's our competitive advantage because, the borrower doesn't have to come to, closing with a bunch of cash. And I'm like, I get it. But like in the back of my mind, I'm like, don't do that, man. Don't do that. And like, we have now catered the software to that model because it's like, I almost want to like put like bowling bumpers around like the software to make it difficult for people to do dumbass stuff. And if they really want to do dumbass stuff, it's going to be hard to do that. And, we kind of get in trouble sometimes because like people are like, well, if you could just make it so that you could do this, I'd be like, for example, people are like, I want to fund a loan without having the capital available on the sideline, like in the tool. And I'm like, no, you don't fund a loan unless you have the money, you know? And so like people will like do weird stuff like creating fake investors and adding money to fake investor accounts so that they can like fund a loan with escrow reserves that, you know, like stuff like that. And I'm just like, man, I probably wouldn't do that. But you know, people are, like you said, they have to touch the stove first before, you know, it is what it is.
That, and then also I'm sure you see this all the time, but it's interesting how people come up with loan structures and terms and other things just based on their own way of thinking.
Yes.
And it's like, wow, how did you even come up with X? Like,
yes.
Where did that come from? Like, well, you know, and they have like a reason in their mind for it. And you're like, you know, complicated fails, simple scales, that old adage is very, very present in lending. And when people are giving custom quotes, every borrower gets different terms. It's like, you got to smooth this out if you want to grow.
Absolutely. Well, and you're right. Like it doesn't scale because like, oh yeah, I told this guy 1.9%, but this other guy 2 and 12. And I learned that early on. I was like, I'm 3 and 14 across the board because somebody will call me and like, hey, yeah, we talked like 4 months ago and I literally cannot remember who this dude is. Like I have no idea, but I know that like, I was actually joking to my wife the other day. I was like, it's a good thing I'm an honest guy because I'm like, I have the memory of like a mosquito. And so like I would be caught in a lie so many times if I was a liar because I just wouldn't remember and I couldn't keep it straight. So like borrowers call me, I'm 3 and 14. That's flat and it never changes. It never deviates. Doesn't matter if it's new construction, ground up, bridge, fixed. It doesn't matter. Like that's just what we charge. And like, that's something that you guys profess and teach as well. It's like, that's the only way that you're going to be able to scale. There's no way to do it otherwise.
It makes life so much easier, you know, because you can't remember it all. And if you were quoting terms on email and you could go back and look at it, then you could track what you quoted. But that's also the worst way to sell. The right way to
I agree.
Quote loans, originate deals, build rapport and relationships and everything else is you have to do it on the phone. I mean, in person would be even better, but that's not, you know, common for most
not
people.
feasible.
You have to do it on the phone. That's something that we're harping at our origination staff all the time. Is like, don't be lazy. Don't throw out quotes by email. You get no opportunity to sell, build credibility, all the stuff that you have to do in a normal sales process. You can't do on email.
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh, I completely agree. I'm curious now after you guys have been doing this for 20 years, has your process changed much or does it look pretty much the same as it did in the beginning? Have you molded and shifted much?
Like the actual loan process?
More just like how you structure a loan. Not so much like your sales team or like how your team is structured, but just like the mechanics of a loan. Like how has that shifted since day one?
Not much if we're talking about loan terms and underwriting. That's probably the stuff that has changed the least. I mean, granted, the market was more expensive back then. And so, you know, we decreased like rate and points over the years. Underwriting's pretty similar. I'm sure we've gotten better at it, added more things into both borrower and property underwriting. But more so like, you know, tech, software, process, that kind of stuff has evolved over the years. And it is today, especially with, you know, all the AI stuff going on. But yeah, I mean, underwriting and the fundamentals of lending has really not changed that much. Yeah.
Where's the balance between like making sure that you do a good deal versus underwriting versus like what your team does? Like, I think that's something that people struggle with when they're not a one-man show. So like my understanding, and correct me if this is wrong, is like Jason does the initial phone call, gets kind of the numbers squared away, make sure it's something you even want to do. And then you pass it off to like your loan processor. Does Terry have any like give and take or say in like, hey, this is actually kind of fishy. This looks weird. Or like, I wouldn't move on this after the fact. Like, do you see what I'm asking?
I do. She will point something out if it seems off. She's not going to make like unilateral decisions on changing terms or loan amounts or anything like that. But as documents come in, because that is the handoff. Usually it's, you know, quote a deal verbally if somebody verbally agrees, and we'll send out term sheets, LOI, stuff like that, and the requested documents and request the valuation fee be paid. We use PayPal most of the time. And then that's the close. When somebody pays a valuation fee, that's when it passes from the loan originator to Terry. And so most docs haven't come in yet. Sometimes Jason or whichever originator it is might want to see some stuff, sales contract, scope of work. They might want to put their hands on some of the more important documents, but then later on, there's always other stuff coming in, operating agreement and, corporate resolution and like who's signing for what. And then some of that can get a little jumbled in these deals. If anything seems a little off, then, Terry's very, very good at her job. She's been with us for a long time. But she knows if something's off, insurance is not right, a borrower is not even responsive, and so she'll bring that to the attention of the loan originator if it comes up.
Yeah, I gotcha. I just wonder, like, there's always, you're like busy underwriting a deal and things just like come up, like, there's additional liens on the property that they didn't like really mention or like, the property is really not worth they say it is. And so who does that like renegotiation piece? Does that go back to Jason or does like kind of Terry handle that after the fact?
It would go back to the loan originator if it was something major that required like a restructure. Like somebody verbally said, this doesn't happen too often, but if someone verbally said they had a 700 credit score and it comes back at 580,
right?
That's going back to the originator and like, how are we going to rework this? Or we have one that's going on this week where the sales price decreased by like 150,000.
Oh, wow.
Renegotiated with the seller. Like after we had issued terms, it's like, okay, cool. But our loan amount's going down. And so that's something that you got to loop the originator, because our loan originators on our team, they're underwriters too. Like the final say will be Jason and myself, but our business partners who are originators are very skilled underwriters themselves. And so they know how to make these adjustments. They'll run it by typically Jason, but they know what they're doing.
Was that borrower just expecting to like get a check for $100,000 at closing, or like what were they like? What did they think was going to happen?
I couldn't speak as to what they expected. I don't know what they were thinking. But it happened at the very beginning of origination. It wasn't like right before closing. Although we used to have a borrower who we did probably 100 loans for. He's one of the biggest home buyers in the Mid-Atlantic, called House Buyers of America. And part of his standard process, at least it was back in the day, he doesn't borrow from us anymore. He gets some really cheap money. But every single time right before closing, the sales price would go down. Because part of his standard sales process would be to contact the seller and be like, I did my due diligence. I know we're only 2 days away from closing, but I can't pay this much. I can't pay you $300. I can pay you $275 every single time, or I'm out, right? And so sometimes he would do it so late in the game that we wouldn't notice until we got the settlement statement. It's like, wait a minute, why is there zero cash to close? Oh, because of course it's down. And he conveniently didn't mention anything.
Of course.
But hey,
by the way, so I've got a buddy that he exclusively is just like a nationwide wholesaler, and he does the same thing. And maybe it's just a personality thing, but I feel so like scummy and just like, I just don't like it. That just is not like how I operate. And like, I get it if truthfully you're like, hey, I reran numbers and this is just not going to work. There have been times that like when I was buying flips and things like that, maybe 2 or 3 times when I was like, look, I'm really sorry. I misread, like my scope of work is way higher. Like it's just going to cost more than I anticipated. I'm so sorry. I have to back out unless we can renegotiate. But this dude, like without fail, it is part of his closing process is like, let's see if we can get another 5 or 10% off the sales price just to pad our margins. And I'm like, I get it. It's business. Do the best you can. But I just like, I don't like that. I feel scammy and scummy, and that's just not how I work.
No, that's too greasy. You're right. Yeah. If it's a legitimate change because your scope of work came in different, then of course. But if it's just part of your sales process, that's too greasy for me too.
Like, yeah, I have an image in my head, and I'm like, I don't want to operate like that. So,
same.
One question I have always wanted to ask you is, you guys have done well over 4,000 loans, been in the business for 20 years. one thing, and this is something that Hormozy talks about a lot, is he said entrepreneurs get kind of the wrong like feedback loop, right? So like when you originally leave your W-2 job, you get this like dopamine hit. You're like, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. I started this new thing, and you get this like this rush, you get this hit. But then he goes on to say that people get the wrong feedback loop because they get this dopamine hit every time they start something new and they try something new, and they just like, you're doing the wrong thing, right? You and Jason have been doing this for 20 years. This is something that I still struggle with, is like, ooh, shiny. Like, how do you guys, how have you not deviated for 20 years and just like, this is what we're doing. We are not going to deviate. This is all we're focusing on. Tell me, because it's something I struggle with to this day.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we haven't talked about this, season of our business career before, but we have certainly had the entrepreneur ADD, shiny object syndrome over the years. So at the beginning, it was laser focused just on this type of lending, but also like we were terrified then. Like we started at the end of 2007, and then the next year everything was a crash, everything was wild. Doom and gloom. It wasn't even dopamine and like a rush from it. It was just straight fear, and had quit jobs, had bills to pay. Granted, we were in our 20s. We didn't have families. We didn't have like the big budget. So paying the bills was pretty easy, but we still had to close deals. It was not a side hustle. So later on, we started getting that. So maybe even less than 5 years, we went through a few one phase, I would say, of shiny object syndrome, but a few different objects along the way, maybe more than a few. Like one was we got good at marketing and paid traffic because we were driving leads to our lending business. And then we were like, okay, well, maybe we can drive leads to other businesses because we've learned to
start a marketing agency.
Yeah, kind of, or let's be affiliate marketers. And this was when, 2010-ish, before traffic was cheap. Yeah. Like cost per click on Google was,
pennies,
a fraction of what it is now. So we dabbled kind of successfully, largely unsuccessfully, in affiliate marketing for unrelated products or maybe real estate things. We were on like the conference scene, like making contacts in that niche, and the whole time running HMB. Like HMB paid the bills without a doubt. That was one shiny object we got caught up in for a while till we realized it's just not a great model. Another one was building real estate investing software. Put a bunch of money into that, and then realized that we didn't really want to run a software company. We didn't know how to market it like we did a lending business. Like that was one, dumped money into that. Even, buying rental properties. And that's more within our niche, right?
Yeah.
It's residential real estate investing. But it wasn't where we're best operationally day to day. But we buy a couple dozen rentals over a handful of years, and we're like, not the best areas, not the best tenants, like cash flow is okay. Fortunately, the market appreciated and we ended up making some money on the out sales, but that was just mainly a distraction. Or writing our first book over here, which has nothing to do with our niche in business. The other ones later on that we did, like this one, like, Hard Money. That was another one. Like, I had a PR lady who was like booking speaking engagements for me and unrelated to real estate or lending.
Stop. And, really?
Yeah. Shoot, there's probably more, but like that was a period of like maybe 5 to 7 years of distractions, and still like what was really paying the bills was our lending business. And then, you grow up a little bit, you see what's not working. You don't at some point you just kind of feel like you're awesome and you can do every different business and it's going to be great. And like, let's add this on, let's add that on. We have a good team. We have a good office. We have, and then over time you're like, let's refocus in on where we actually make our money. And that was like 2018-ish, 2017.
Okay.
Around there, we shed all these side things. And we did start a logical add-on to our lending business, which was the Mastermind.
Yeah.
The podcast, the online Mastermind turned into the in-person meetings after that. And that was like around 2019. And operationally, that's all we have now. The lending company, putting our own funds into our own deals, plus the investor capital, everything else, and the mastermind, which is very, very specific to the same type of lending, and they complement each other.
Right.
And that's it. So we did have that. We very much.
So I was just misinformed. I thought here you were just like these like just amazing at just like shifting through all the shit of like ADD, like ooh shiny. And okay, so you're like susceptible to it too. That makes me feel better.
You're susceptible to it, especially in our 30s, and and you grow out of it.
Yeah. Well, and like, so I see both sides, right? Because like when you're in your 20s, you're literally just like throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks, right? You're like, I don't even like, I don't know. I just got out of college. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to make money. I'm just doing anything I can to like make it.
Yeah.
But what's funny is personally, like my own success has come within the last 5 years, maybe. And all of that is from like putting on blinders and just saying, look, unless it is lending money to other people or building software around lending money to other people, like the answer is no. And it's an automatic no. And that has been the thing that has like catapulted my net worth and my wealth more than any other thing, because I started this website for this thing, and I started this little side hustle thing for maybe try this. And it just like, none of them ever took off really like these did. And so anyway, it sounds like you guys,
learned less quicker than most people did.
Yeah. So now this leads to my other question. So I was listening to the podcast you did with Kevin Kim, Lender Lounge, which was awesome, by the way. I actually really, really enjoyed that.
It was a good episode.
That was really good.
We touched on all the right stuff in that one.
Everything. And so like, if any listeners who have not listened to that, go listen to it, because it was awesome. And Kevin, I'd say is an acquaintance of mine. He's just a solid dude. He's very well versed in the industry. He's a wealth of information. But anyway, that episode was awesome. And one thing that you guys touched on was DSCR. Kevin mentioned like he kind of recommended that you I think the specific phrase he said was crawl, walk, run around like brokering deals, starting out with like DSCR, because that's where most people start. Is they don't have the connections, they don't have the relationship, they don't have the money to really do a private lending business from the start. So that was Kevin's recommendation. You guys kind of like actually advocate to do the exact opposite. You're like, we don't do DSCR, we don't do RTA, we don't do anything. It's just like hard money, private money. That's it. So kind of in the same object of like ooh shiny with maybe brokering or some of these other conferences that do cater to that. Tell me your thought. I feel like you guys have been really good at like, again, putting on the blinders, focus, staying in your lane now, and you don't get distracted with DSCR and all this other stuff.
Well, the institutional money in our space, I don't see it as much more appealing than just being a conventional mortgage lender based on the spreads. Like the only advantage it might have is that they're investors who borrow over and over and over. So the repeat client business could make it attractive. But in terms of, let's talk about some numbers. Granted, we've never like done a DSCR loan. We'll refer them out here and there, but what do lenders make on that? A point?
A point, if that. Yeah.
A point, if that, which is comparable to the conventional mortgage lending industry, in between, 3/4 of a point and a point. And those are, obviously big loan amounts and primary residence deals. And, like that's a whole built out industry that's been around forever. And the DSCR, it doesn't seem attractive. Like if we're talking about in our setup, 3 points, 12.99% for our, fix and flip loans or bridge loans, whatever the situation may be, the pricing's the same. And if we are paying capital investors 10, that's a 6-point spread. That's 6 points. That's 6 times the profit for that deal. And that's assuming that you don't have any of your own money into it. Like if you are funding some of your own deals with your own money, obviously you get, the whole thing, 16 points for a year. 16 points. So just so that's one, is just the the spread that you're going to make. Honestly, that's why we started HMB and got away from conventional mortgage. It's like, I didn't think we made enough money for all these loans we did, for all this loan volume I put out.
Yeah.
And then the other one was control. So there's like profit and there's control. Again, the DSCR and the institutional RTL world, you're giving up that control. And so to me, that is just like the conventional mortgage world. Like I'm making low spreads and I have no control over this process or underwriting or funding or any of it. What's it for? What are we doing this for? But also like we have the insight on that because we were in this industry for years when there was no institutional money. There was a huge barrier to entry, and that barrier to entry was raising private capital. And then the industry changed once Wall Street and capital from other sources come in and say, hey, you can be in this business. You can do these rehab deals using our money. Here's your pricing matrix. Here's your underwriting guidelines. Go find deals. Without that, a lot of companies would never have been in this business. They wouldn't be. They were never going to get past the barrier to entry of raising capital. And so the people who came in, and I see people like on LinkedIn and on social media and, even certain people who come into the mastermind, the online mastermind, they don't have the perspective of both. They think the industry is just like, you do this deal and you sell it to raw capital.
Yeah.
Here's how you can do it. And we can make a point or two. And great. It can be a good business. And if it's working, look, we never tell anybody like how they should run their business or, everyone has bills to pay. Everyone's trying to make money. Everyone's trying to save and invest. If it's working, then roll with it, But having the perspective of seeing the industry before that made the institutional world not look attractive at all. Even if you can put out, $50 million a month or whatever you can bring in, like it comes with other stuff that makes it unattractive. The overhead, the people that you need, the marketing budget to do that many deals, the compressed margins. What's the bottom line going to look like? What's the profit at the end of the month after doing all this volume, all these deals, like a busy office, everything else that comes with it versus like putting out $2 million in real private money.
Yeah.
Well,
you guys, on some of your own podcast episodes, you talked about and I'm probably going to butcher the story, but basically like you had maybe not a competitor, but a friend in the space who was like, you guys were kind of neck and neck. And then they started to like surpass you as far as like balance sheet size. But when you were talking about like net profit, you guys were way ahead of them. Just because of like the nature of what they were doing. And they were just like, we're spinning our wheels. We are doing so much volume, but we're not getting ahead. Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's the gist of it. And they knew what they were doing. The two guys who own that company are very sharp, but they're also volume guys. And they had a private lending operation like us. And they made a conscious decision to change it to institutional, do nationwide RTL and DSCR with their own like tweaks to it because they're smart. Like some people, anyway, now I'm going to skip that part. They knew exactly what they were getting into. And they were like, yeah, we can be, at the time, maybe we were 30 million outstanding, something like that. And we're making X amount and they're making X amount. And they're like, we're going to grow this thing. And we know that it's not going to look that good at 100. It's going to look better when we get past, I forget what the number was, 150 or 175 million outstanding.
Oh, wow.
Then it took all that volume to get more profitable than 30 million private. And it's just a matter of preference.
Right.
Like, those guys are killers. They know exactly what they're doing. They're way bigger than that now. They run a 150 person lending company. Like if that's what you're into,
oh, wow.
it could be available to you.
Yeah.
But me and Jason, that's just not what we like, not what we're looking for in a career and a lifestyle business and everything else.
Yeah. So I have done that, and I've only done it once. I had one deal early on. It was a ground up construction. I didn't have the money for it. It was a good deal. It was like a 400,000 or no, I think it was a 350 loan amount. ARV was like 750. And I was like, this is amazing. So, I reached out to Rock Capital. I got onboarded with their like broker portal, did all the things. And the amount of work between the back and forth and just like the justification and the documents and everything that they required, I was like, pulling my hair out. And I'm like, you guys, this is a slam dunk deal. Why do you need all these like 17,000 pieces of paper that like I was just like, no. And so luckily at kind of the final hour, I was able to find the cash and we ended up just funding it ourselves. And because of that experience, like never again, I've never brokered another deal to Rock Capital. I refuse to. I have no plans to use a Kiavi or an RCN. I would rather not do the deal than deal with all the bullshit back and forth, red tape, doc upload. And then it's just a game of telephone between you and the borrower. You're just a middleman. I'm just like, ugh, it was gross. And I have no plans to ever do it ever again.
No, totally. And going back to when we were talking about touching the hot stove, we had a couple years ago, one of our business partners, Ryan Walsh, who runs North Carolina and also Jersey, because he moved from one place to another. He went through that where he was like, look, I talked to these guys at a conference, at a meetup group, like we can fund deals. Like they'll do 90% loan to cost, ground up construction, $1 million loans, the DSCR, like all the shiny object stuff that they advertise. He's like, yeah, I mean, we can do those too. I don't have to pass on these deals. I can close the ones that fit in HMB's box and I can do all these other ones too. And of course we had been down that road before. We've been at this for a long time. And we're like, give it a go, give it a shot, like process some of those. And he hooked up with a couple capital sources, note buyers and, whatever fit the situation. And he had to go through it himself. He had to touch the hot stove himself, where he went through the process. And one of them, because you're putting your name on the line, like those capital people are behind the scenes, like
right.
your client facing, like they know Hard Money Banker's name. And because of the shitty process he went through on one particular deal, we picked up a 1-star review on Google for his office, and which would never happen in HMB's process because we make it easy. He's like, man, but he had to go through it for a good 6 or 9 months and close maybe one deal or two, and that's it. And tried to process a few dozen of them. And I know that I see him on LinkedIn, I know that people close these and people base their entire business on these sources of capital. I don't know how.
Agreed.
You go through it yourself. You're like, who can do this?
Yeah.
Who can do this? So anyway, that's just another example of he had to go through that himself. And then he learned and he was like, this is terrible. I made almost no money. I spent tons of time, even banged on my reputation a little bit.
Yep.
And now we're back to where we started, where we know what works.
Well, it's just so funny, right? Because I get it, because instinctively, you're like, I'm leaving money on the table. Why would I not broker this out? I can't do it myself. I might as well get a point. Mm-hmm. But I mean, guilty. I've done it myself, and it was not worth it. And the other day, I funded a $1.2 million loan. You could do the math, and I made $35,000 in points alone, and the deal was way easier than all the back and forth with Rock Capital for days, if not weeks, and just to have the deal not close, and I just got fed up and funded it myself. That was the moment that I was like, God damn, Chris and Jason are right again, and it fucking pisses me off. Okay,
it pisses me off too. It pisses me off too. You can't help but think that whole leaving money on the table by passing on all these leads is valid. That's a valid thing to think, but it has a lot to do with focus too. How many deals did you miss out on because you were messing around with correspondent lending and everything? And nothing against Rock Capital. I know a few of those guys. They were actually the first institutional group physically in our office, in this office where I am now, when that money came out. And we didn't go for it, but of course we're going to look into it. Nothing against those guys. They got a ton of money outstanding. They probably make a shit ton of money.
Sure.
So good for them. Just not the best setup for most of us. But man, it just goes to show you, we all learn these same lessons. And that's why, again, a mastermind group can shortcut it. It can't just hand it to you. Some things you have to go through yourself, but it can hand you a lot. Yeah, I know. We get those reactions sometimes, God, these guys are right again. And it's not because we're geniuses. It's just because we've been through it.
Sure. Well, and it's funny because I do that. I make fun of Jason specifically just because he's like, all right, 600,000 purchase price. So you're going to bring 500,000 in cash to close, right? And like, I joke, right? Because his LTVs are like, dude, I don't know how you closed any deals. But like I said, I had my first couple foreclosures and I'm like, damn it, this dude is right. And I just like, if I had done it the right way, I wouldn't be in this situation. And so it just goes to show like, yeah, like masterminds, learning from others, it is an absolute cheat code. And I should have joined sooner. Like they're amazing. What you guys do is unreal.
That comes up a lot. What you mentioned about like, yeah, you look at Jason when we're in the room, like this comes up a lot. And a lot of people give him a hard time about like, yeah, Jason's going to make him put down 40% in this particular case. And if you ask him about a specific deal, he's going to have an answer so specific as to why. It wasn't just like I lowballed him. They said yes, and we're good. It's like, yeah, he's buying it for 600, but look at this comp over here. The right price is 525. And based on his past project, when he did a $50,000 rehab, I don't totally trust he's going to do this $150K rehab all that good. And so that's why, because of this and this and this is the right loan amount. It's not out of nowhere. Like he'll have specifics on everyone. Because I even say the same thing. I'm like, this looks like a qualified borrower. Like we're putting up 300. They're bringing 250. And he always has a specific answer for it.
And I guess that makes more sense. But also to his credit, why would you not? Like if you do have a 500 ARV and they want to bring 80% for cash to close, like cool, that's a really good loan. And like I'd be happy to do that all day, but it's a fine line. And so I give him a hard time, but like he's probably right. And that gives more background and better background to it. So Chris, I want to be conscious of your time because I know we're coming up on almost an hour here. First off, thanks so much for being here. This is too much fun. Second, I would for seriously anybody who's living under a rock and has not heard of you guys, I want to hear stretch your stuff, give us your socials, promote the Mastermind event, which by the way, you should join, and they're hard to get into and they're very prestigious. So if you can get on the wait list and finally get in, do it. But anyway, I'll let you share.
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, your audience is a bunch of lenders, most likely using lender software. So I think the right place to learn more about what we were talking about is hardmoneymastermind.com. You can learn about the online community and then also the live events information there. And if you're curious to check out our lending company we've been talking about, it's hardmoneybankers.com.
Absolutely. And on top of that, you didn't mention it, but there is an online community as well. So if you're not interested in doing maybe an in-person event, or if there is a wait list, the online community is just as valuable as well. And you can jump on there and ask questions. And Chris and Jason are amazing with like sharing documents on like, hey, what does your collateral assignment look like? And what do I do in this? I mean, they're always in there. So they're a treasure trove of information and just a solid group of guys that are always willing to help out. So, Chris, thanks so much for being here. This has been fun. So
thanks for having me. No, I appreciate it. Very good talk.